Hello, BookTube. This is Alan. We're going to continue with a reading from Literary Life. This is December 1901, and this is a very short reading. Let me find it here. Excuse me. This is entitled "A True Long-Haired Poet," Sir Edward Shearburn, and this is the portrait of the Sir Edward Shearburn, and this is the estate in England we live. This is basically an account of Sir Edward Shearburn, and it's like a short bibliographical sketch and three of his poems. I never heard of this poet before, but I believe that our poet laureate on the BookTube community, Sean D. Steadfast, has probably heard of this poet. So let's read. The following account of one of King Charles I's favorites is taken from a dainty book entitled Cavalier Poets by Clarence M. Lindsay. The poet is of Sir Edward Shearburn, and the photograph is a picture of the Shearburn family hall. The three poems are specimens of his work, which is of peculiar dainty and scholarly character. We are indebted to the Reverend Father Joseph Brown, Society of Jesuits, rector of the Stonyhurst College, Blackburn, England, for the photograph of Shearburn Hall, and to the artist for the portrait. There's Shearburn Hall right there. Sir Edward Shearburn, who was distinguished for his loyalty and vicissitudes, was born in 1618 and succeeded his father's clerk of the ordnance, having obtained a reversion of the office. The Civil War breaking out, Shearburn, being a royalist and a Roman Catholic, was deprived of his place by the order of the Lords on August 17, 1642. For some months he was in custody of the Usher of the Black Rod. Released in October, he repaired to Nottingham and joined the king, who made him Commissioner General of the Artillery. He was present at the Battle of Edgehill. On the surrender of Oxford in June 1646, Shearburn moved to London and resided in the Middle Temple with a relative named Thomas Povey. He was in sore straits, as his estate had been seized, as well as his personal property, including his valuable library, which was great in choice, and accounted one of the most considerable belonging to any gentleman in or near London. At the Restoration, he lost his place at the ordnance. The restoration to the office on petition, the emoluments which he now shared with Francis Nicholas was greatly reduced. In the petition for compensation in 1661, he claimed that he kept the train of ordnance together to serve as a troop in the field in the decline of the late king's cause, and preserved the ordnance records so that it is now restored to the primitive order and constitution. Shearburn died on November 4, 1702, and is buried in the chapel of the Tower of London. A memorial table erected by Kingsman Sir Nicholas bears a lengthy inscription in Latin said to be composed by him. Excuse me. Excuse me. Now we'll read three poems by Sir Edward Shearburn. The Heart Magnet. Shall I, hopeless, then pursue a fair shadow that still flies me? Shall I still adorn and woo a proud heart that does despise me? I, a consistent love may sow, but alas, a fruitless show. Shall I, by the erring light of two crossing stars, shall sail that do shine, but shine in spite, not to guide, but make me fail. I a wandering course may steer, but the harbor never come near. While thus thought my soul possesses, reason passion would oversway, binding me by flames suppress, or divert some other way. But what reason would pursue that my heart runs counter to? So a pilot bent to make search for some found out land, does with him the magnet take, sailing to the unknown strand. But that steer which way he will, to a love north point still. That was his second poem, called False Lycorius. Lately by clear Thames' side, fair Lycorius I espied, with the pen of her white hand, these words printing on the sand. None Lycorius doth approve, but Mirtilio for her love. Off false nymph, those words were fit, and sad only to be writ. For the quickly rising streams of oblivion in the teams, and the little moments stay from the shore washed clean away. What thy hand had there impressed, and Martilio from thy breast. In the last one, a maiden in love with a youth blind in one eye. Though a sable cloud benight one of the fair twins of light, yet the other brighter seems, as had robbed his brother's beams. Or both light to one were run, of two stars now made one sun. Cunning archer, who knows yet? But thou winks my heart to hit. Close the other two and all. Thee the god of love will call. So that was the Sir Edward Shear. Yesterday, I received in the post a bound volume of Century Magazine. This is I had heard about Faith in Books doing this May is for magazines, and I wanted to participate, and I had a small window of opportunity to go to a half-price bookstore, which I failed to do before they were closed because of this COVID-19 pandemic. So I went online to eBay. Excuse me. Get a drink here. So I went online to eBay, and I bought The Literary Life. I found it and bought it. And I looking around, there are a lot of magazines there, literary magazines, and I found this one. This is Century Magazine. It was this is a bound volume, May through October 1888. Century Magazine was founded by the Century Company in 7 years before, 1881, 1882, I believe. And they print different authors throughout the years. They print Mark Twain and excerpts of his book Huckleberry Finn in this magazine. Presidents Roosevelt, before they became president, Roosevelt, Wilson, Taft were in this magazine. A lot of others were in the magazine. Grant and Sherman, and also Beauregard wrote articles for this magazine. So this magazine runs from May to October. So this is the index of it. And you have people like George Eliot, one on Walt Whitman, talking about Army hospitals and cases. from 1863 to 66. You have Mexican campaign. You have John Burroughs, Colonel William Fox talking about the chances of being hit in battle. This is during the Civil War. You have Edward Ingleton talking about the churches in the colonies, Church of England in the colonies, illustrated by George Gibson, H.C. Edwards, and others. And here's one on disease germs and how to combat them by Lucius Picken. You have Eat What We Should Eat by Professor W. Alter. George Keenan talks about his travels to Russia, Siberia, especially the Caucasus, during the Tsar Alexander II reign. And there's one about two secretaries from the Abraham Lincoln. I have a series of articles in here talking about Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, in the Civil War. There's also poetry, Walt Whitman, Thomas Wentworth Higginson, Minna Irving, Emma Lazarus, Thomas Wentworth Higginson again. There's some on astronomy, science, birds. You have a memorandum of the Civil War, Lee's journal views on enlisting the Negroes, and that is by Andrew Hunter. Sherman's Grand Strategy, some errors in general. Sherman's Grand Strategy by W. Allen. And different topics. You have manual training, the American flag, the clergy, a lay sermon. You have, and just a lot of things going in here. Open letters from George Keenan and different other people. This is the May issue, May 1988. This is Exiles, called Siberia and the Exile System. This was in 1888, the assassination of Alexander II and incognito as Central Africa and Tibet. So, so you have that, and you have a little map of Siberia, and one called Across the Russian Frontier. And it's illustrated, vastly illustrated. And this is just a series of his travels. George Keenan travels throughout Russia. And this is on in every page. So this goes on for about 20 pages. Then you have, see if I can find, this is a personality of Leo the 13th, who was the Pope at the time. And you have an article called The Graysons, A Story of Illinois, which is by Edward Ingleston. And here's the article here on Abraham Lincoln and History of the Border States by George G. Nicolay and John Hay, private secretaries to the president. And and I just read a little bit here. It says, no sooner had the secession ordinance been secretly passed by the Convention of Virginia than Governor Letcher notified Jefferson Davis of the event, and doubtless by pre-concert invited him to send a commissioner from Montgomery to Richmond to negotiate an alliance. The adhesion of Virginia was an affair of such magnitude and pressing need to the Cotton States that Davis made the vice president of the new Confederacy, Alexander H. Stephens, his plenipotentiary, who accordingly arrived at Richmond on the 22nd of April. Here he found everything as favorable to his mission as he possibly wished. The convention was filled with newborn zealots of insurrection. Many lately stubborn Union members were willingly accepted offices in the contemporized army of the state that the governor had appointed Robert E. Lee, commander-in-chief of the Virginia forces, which choice the convention immediately confirmed. Stevens was shrewd enough to perceive that his real negotiations lay neither with the governor nor the convention, but with the newly created military chieftain. And it just goes on to talk about, and this is a couple of pictures here. This is Governor Jackson, and this one here is Major General Francis Blair, and you get insights into the Civil War and about meetings with Lincoln had with his generals. This is Brigadier General Nathaniel Lyon. There's one right here. It says, an order to Captain Lyon read as follows. The President of the United States directs that you enroll in the military service of the United States the loyal citizens of St. Louis and vicinity, not exceeding with those heretofore enlisted 10,000 in number for the purpose of maintaining the authority of the United States for the protection of the peaceful inhabitants of Missouri, and you will, if deemed necessary for the purpose, by yourself and by the Misters Oliver T. Philly, John Howe, James O. Broadbent, Samuel T. Glover, J. Wizek, Francis B. Blair, Jr. proclaiming martial law in the city of St. Louis. Good thing we don't have martial law today. Is the Church of England in the colonies. This is Samuel Johnson, who was first president of King's College. I'm looking for another one here that I can find. And the one with the two secretaries of President Lincoln, that's a series of articles that they later put into a book form. Oh, here it is. This is was written by Theodore Roosevelt. Illustrations by Frederick Remington. This is this first article here was a Shear's work on the ranch. And this is done, these articles were written before he became president. He just talks about the Wild West. And I'll read you a little section here. Up to 1888, the country through which the Little Missouri flows remained as wild, almost as unknown as it was when the old explorers and the fur traders crossed it in the early part of the century. It was the last great Indian hunting ground across which Grosvenors and the Mandans, Sioux, Cheyennes, even Crows and Rees wandered in the chase of game, and where they fought one another and plundered the small parties of white trappers and hunters that occasionally ventured in. Once or twice, generals like Sully and Custer had penetrated it in the course of the long, tedious, and bloody campaigns, and finally broke the strength of the northern horse Indians. Indeed, the trail made by Custer's baggage trains is to this day one of the well-known landmarks for the deep rust worn by the wheels and the heavy wagons are in many places still as distinctly to be seen as ever. This is one by Frederick Remington illustration, and a couple more here. A couple mountain lions on a deer. This one's titled One of the Boys. Picture right here. And several more illustrations by Frederick Remington. A couple more here. Let me see for that glare. And yeah, this is going to be really good, and I'll probably go ahead and do excerpts of different articles, because this is very long, because each article runs for about 10-15 pages, so they're very long. And I was looking at this late last night after I got home from work, and saw the package and started looking through it. And yeah, it's gonna be, yeah, and I probably have to, and probably will have to do an excerpts. Here's one by Roosevelt again in the next April's issue about the ranchman's rifle and the crag in the prairie. So he wrote a series of articles each year. Here's one called The Liar by Henry James in 2 parts. So yeah, this, and I enjoy this. And this one's called A Printer's Paradise, which I'm not really sure what this article is about. Turn to the very front of the article. Yeah, it's about the Plantin Mortis Museum at Antwerp, and it talks about the first printing press there. A couple illustrations, and yeah, like I said, it runs through all the way through October, so there's going to be a lot here to go through. And also it has architecture. This is a Lincoln Cathedral, and there's the floor plan for the Lincoln Cathedral, and the picture of the cathedral itself on the other side. And yeah, and this one just goes on and on and on, kind of like Ken Follett's book about the cathedral. And you had one on astronomy. This is an article called Cathedral Astronomy Old and New, and methods of naming the stars. And yeah, this picture here on both sides of the stars. Is the chart of the stars in the northern hemisphere. So yes, this is going to be very good to go through. I really enjoyed this last night, reading some of the articles in it. So I probably have to do, I'll probably do this in excerpts, like read parts of it and come back and read another part of it, because they are pretty long articles in here. So yeah, that's my plan to-dos in the Century magazine. They actually stopped production in 1930. So it's a very good introduction to it. So that's it, and we'll start one, probably the Theodore Roosevelt one, or the one on the two secretaries under Abraham Lincoln, and start one of those pretty soon. So take care, BookTube, and have a good day.